So I chose to look at Mark Zuckerberg for my leadership analysis. Part of the reason why is that I'm an art teacher and I wanted to look at somebody who was outside of my normal realm. But I also wanted to look at somebody who influences, potentially billions of people without actually interacting with them directly. I've always thought that that was a very interesting idea, how we can have these leaders that don't work with us directly, but they still have such a major effect on our everyday lives. So that was the main reason why I decided to work on Mark Zuckerberg. So, who is Mark Zuckerberg? I think at this point in our world, it's kind of hard to find people who don't know who Mark Zuckerberg is. But essentially, he is one of the co founders of Facebook. He became, I would say, more prominent when he was in college. He created a website called Face Mash when he was at Harvard. And the goal of that website was essentially to put pictures up of two people, and then people could go on and vote who was more attractive of those two people. So when he created this, immediately it became the buzz around his school and the outside area. And it was a huge controversy, but that is what originally got him noticed, and that's what originally led him to start to work on Facebook. When he created Facebook, he pretty much wanted it to do three things. He wanted to essentially take something that we were using pen and paper for, or large like phone books and paper books for, which was directories. So he wanted to create a digital directory where people could find information about each other online. And then that way it's much easier to locate that information, and you also don't have to have all these books. He also wanted to create a social networking platform where people could share information and ideas. And then, really, he wanted to create an infrastructure for the internet, which could be used globally. So, at this point, a lot of us know who Mark Zuckerberg is through Facebook. So, over the years, that business has allowed him to gain a huge amount of wealth to the point where he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. And with that money comes a lot of power or opportunity to really do a lot of good. So, in addition to working on Facebook and influencing through there, he also works with his wife, Priscilla Chan. They created the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, and that is meant to work with organizations to improve medical health. So, they create different pockets here and there in the medical field to improve different components of people's life. So I found that interesting because that's another form of leadership where Zuckerberg might not necessarily be dealing directly with the mass of people, but he is working closely with those other organizations that he's helping to develop these medical ideas. When I think about leadership theory and Mark Zuckerberg, what came to mind to me was that he is more of an assigned servant leader. He holds a position in his company, which is where the assigned leadership comes into place, especially since he is one of the co-founders of Facebook. And then his goal was to create something that was to serve the population. I could see an argument where he could be considered an emergent leader, or a leader where he kind of arose because of the people, in that Facebook is something that we all can sign up for or choose not to sign up for. Even if we do sign up for it, if we feel that it's something that's no longer relevant, we can cancel our account. So, in a way, the fact that people keep signing up or keep using the platform, that is in support of Mark Zuckerberg. Even if you don't totally agree with the platform, if you're still using it and enjoying it, and he is kind of making those changes as the people use it and determine what they like and what they don't like, if we continue to support that, then in a way I could see how that would put him as an emergent leader. In continuing with the idea of servant leadership, Zuckerberg created Facebook and his social media platforms as a way to serve the community. So right there off the bat, that would deal with servant leadership. Thinking about Larry Spear's ideas about servant leadership, Zuckerberg created something that uses persuasion, conceptualization, foresight, and building community, which are part of Spear's 10 characteristics of servant leadership. So he was thinking into the future, thinking about tools that we can use and also tools that can be used socially. In addition, Zuckerberg's work with his wife and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative also deals with certain servant leadership in trying to find ways to improve the health and wellness of people over time. So, one of the problems that I found in my research about trying to use a platform like Facebook to influence is that it can lead to a society where people become more insincere. So, I found an article by Joseph Cunningham, and he discusses this how sometimes people could be having conversations on Facebook, and at any point in time, someone could just, unfriend or block someone. So instead of having a dialogue and continuing conversation and building relationships, people just have these one-sided conversations where somebody says something that annoys them, so they block them or comment back with something snarky, and then the conversation is over. So I can see how something like Facebook and Zuckerberg trying to create a platform like this to lead or influence can cause problems because now we have a separation with. So when I think about my leadership style or my leadership philosophy and compare that to Mark Zuckerberg's, I would have to say that it's very different. For one, I don't ever see myself being on the level of Mark Zuckerberg as far as fame, wealth, resources, that type of thing. So he has a much more global reach than I would ever see myself having. But I kind of view myself, or I tend to kind of fall into that authentic leadership style where I really love working with people individually. And I think being a teacher is a huge part of that. Not only do I love really working with my students, but I also like working with everyone around me, my colleagues, my administration. I feel that that collaborative nature much more suits me. And I feel that I have much more of an impact if I'm working directly with those people, and I feel that everyone is involved and valued. That doesn't necessarily mean that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't feel that way, and he may work very closely with people, but if you are someone that has, 2 billion followers or something around the world that use your platform, then there's definitely going to be that disconnect. So how you impact people in that way versus how I might be able to impact people is much different. So in conclusion, I would say that Mark Zuckerberg is more of an assigned servant leader. One thing I will say about my research is that I wish I would have been able to delve a little bit deeper. I was able to find a ton of information that was not through peer-reviewed sources, and I found that some of it was pretty good, but whether or not it was truthful, that's one of the problems with finding sources that are not peer-reviewed. There was an archive that I found through an organization that pretty much has everything publicly that Mark Zuckerberg has said. The only problem was that I wasn't able to access that because you have to gain permission for it. So maybe if I had more time, that's definitely something that I would love to delve deeper into, because I think that would give me more information about Mark Zuckerberg's philosophy from his own standpoint, because that's something that I was having a hard time finding. A lot of the information I was finding was more from external sources rather than him stating what his own philosophy was. So if I have a chance in the future, that's something I might try to do some more of.